Hi, sophomore history department. This is Jose. These are just the videos I'm devising and creating for us to be able to look at lesson plans. I thought it'd be good if I made a little video, a very short video on each of my lessons, as opposed to like writing it down because I'm kind of more of a visual learner and I'm learning through a website I've created for each of my units. So I'll have like three little mini videos walking through each of my lessons, like overall big lessons for each unit. So first of all, just a brief description of my unit pages or my unit websites. Here it is, just the foundations of social studies. I'll always post the essential question, kind of the one that we agreed upon to be covering. I might have altered the word slightly. And then also I should put the historical skills that we're using. I realized that. I don't know why I forgot to do that, but I should put the historical skills that we're practicing for the unit as well in the first page, so the students are aware of that. But overall, I'll show you just a brief layout of what a lesson page looks like, and then I'll show you lesson one in this video. So this is the forms of government. We actually just wrapped this up this week. Today was our last day doing it. So the lesson objective of this lesson was we were comparing various types of governments by taking comparative notes and examining future forms of government. So the key vocab is always, well, this is going to be standardized. So the lesson objective is first, then key vocab, then the agenda, then the materials, then the specific activities of the lesson is the standard way that the format of each lesson looks like. It might be a little bit different depending on the lesson. Like some lessons might not have key vocab. Some lessons might not have like a long agenda, but overall this is what it's supposed to look like. So the key vocab was autocracy, democracy, and oligarchy. I'll show you the presentation. Those are the main vocab words, but I gave them examples and had them kind of apply these examples of smaller, like, these are like the umbrella terms I used. And then we talked about like dictatorships and monarchies for this one, talked about direct democracy and a republic in this one. And we talked about like a gerontocracy and I forget what other form of oligarchy we used in the examples, but I'll show you when I get to that part of the lesson. The agenda, I went over some discussion norms. I'll click on this. The material has all the things that they'll need to like open for the day. I sometimes include it over here, but most of the time I include it all in one concentrated area. This is one of the first lessons I made, so it's not as standardized. But we first looked at discussion norms, then I did an interactive presentation and notes on the big three forms of government. Then we did a reading on the future government types, and then we did a writing conclusion activity, which they already turned in. So I'll show you the discussion norms as it's the first thing that my students looked at. I'm sure you have your own discussion norms, but this is just the kind of 4 brief rules I had, and we went over them together, let them ask questions. I'm sure you have your own, but you can always use this if you want it. Then I had the forms of government presentation, but I gave them structured notes to help them take these help them like with this presentation. So they just click on that hyperlink and then it opens them up to this page. This is the actual sheet they turned in. So there's a little definition for government. I categorized each things into separate categories, each form of government, so they could kind of look at it through a chart and compare them. And then I also had some questions about each form of government. So this is where I just kind of gave them the kind of knowledge they need to work with it. But then these questions, which I'll show you how we answered them, because you can't even see the question, but you'll see where the question comes from. These questions are kind of to make the presentation more interactive and to force them to apply their newly found knowledge on autocracies, oligarchies, and democracies. So here's the slideshow. It's pretty basic. I just have the little agenda. What is government? So that's where we define the government. Compare the big 3 types. That's where they take notes in the top portion in this chart I was referring to. And then practical examples. That's kind of where we go into a more applied, a way to apply our knowledge through answering these specific questions that force them to use the definition of autocracy, democracy, and oligarchy within their answers. Okay, so first I define government. Yeah, I'm not going to go on this one that long because you guys know what government is. And then I showed them kind of comparing the main types. I had a little graphic, so I wouldn't like read off the slide that much. And I had like a little fun question. They all got it. Anarchy was the little fun question that we had. But then this is kind of how I formatted the applied, first the notes set part, but then also the applied knowledge part of each form of government. So first I defined it. It's a system of government by one person with absolute power. And then I had some historical types, which this is where I got beneath the umbrella and talked about the different types of autocracies and how it, although this is a type of government, these are more specific types of government. So Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany was a dictatorship, and then Julius Caesar's Roman Empire was a monarchy, for example. I have a little chart which will get them thinking about the focus question. So the modern examples, and this is where the focus kind of applied knowledge question comes in, looked at Kim Jong-un's North Korea is an autocracy, but we asked the question, is Vladimir Putin's Russia an autocracy? So click to the next slide, and here's a little video from Vice, like talking about how Vladimir Putin extended the term limit for presidents till 2036. So then the students are, and then like a lot of the young people that are their age, which is kind of cool, are like, I don't want to live under Putin for 2030 until 2036. I've been under Putin my whole life, and I don't like his rule and stuff like that. So kind of painting him as an autocrat. And then there are these questions where they have to apply their knowledge. So they have to be like, is Russia an autocratic state? What are some advantages to an autocratic system of rule? Because another little thing I talk about is it's kind of interesting that a lot of countries are actually okay with autocracies like India and Russia, but a lot of other countries like Germany, France, and the US are not okay with autocracies. And then what are some disadvantages to an autocratic system of rule? So after watching the video, a lot of them were like, no, it's not quite autocratic. It's somewhat, but they were all using the definition of autocracy within their answer. So it was great. They're really applying the knowledge. And some advantages and disadvantages. You kind of saw them thinking outside of the base definition, kind of actually kind of making some decisions about what's good and what's bad about an autocracy. They struggled a little bit because, we live in a democracy. So, it was hard for them to think of some good stuff. But they still did think of some good parts of autocracies. Next up was oligarchy. Definition again. Oh, I used apartheid. That's right. As a example of oligarchy. And then Mexico's gerontocracy from like the kind of Mexican Revolution, or I guess right before Mexican Revolution time period. And then modern examples, we looked at the People's Republic of China because they have a one-party state. And then the USA. And I was like, oh, is that an oligarchy? And we watched a little video from Bernie Sanders from Vox. And, Bernie Sanders, he's all like, oh, like campaign donors are like have too much power and they're the ones running our company, like these big corporations that can have these huge impacts on elections and stuff, like his normal spiel. So then we got into the questions. Is the modern U.S. an oligarchy? Same idea. Have to apply the knowledge. They use the definition of oligarchy within their answers. A lot of them said no. A lot of them said yes. It was a nice discussion. And then democracy, same exact format, definition, historical examples. This was the one I spent the longest on, like differentiating examples of types of democracies. So I talked about direct democracy versus a republic, which was the one that they had the most questions on. They didn't really understand how it worked. Then I talked about Germany being a modern example. I didn't even want to get into parliamentary and kind of how that kind of stuff works, because they were pretty they had a lot of questions and they were already kind of struggling with a republic specifically. So I was trying to slow it down. So I just said Germany's a parliament, but we're not going to get into that. And then the European Union, I watched a little video with them, how democratic is the EU, because that was kind of our thought question, is the EU a democracy, the supranational government? And they didn't really do very well. I think they just didn't have enough prerequisite or like background knowledge to understand how the EU runs. The video tried to do it justice and explain how the EU works, but it was really quick. So I don't know, you might want to alter that if you decide to implement this lesson to like some other sort of like borderline democratic state. So they have to utilize the definition and apply their knowledge. But yeah, so that was where they took notes after they were done filling this stuff out. And these were where the questions were, the 1, 2, 3 for each of them. They all read this article. It's a Future Governments reading. It's kind of a janky article, but I do like that they have to apply their knowledge that they just learned to kind of look at these new forms of government that might take over or whatever. It's kind of clickbaity, to be honest. I wish I could find a better article, but I was looking for one that's pretty short and pretty comprehensible to them with like not too much fancy terminology. And this was the best one I could find. So there's AI singleton, newocracy, technocracy, cyberocracy, global democracy, demarchy, anarchist society, and a corporate republic. And they read all of those. And then after reading all of them, they would write 2 paragraphs. One for which form of future government did they believe was going to be most effective? Why did they believe that? And then is it similar to any historical governance type that we already discussed in class? and then which form of future government was least effective out of those 8 new ones, why, and is it similar to any government governance type we discussed in class. But yeah, that's basically the whole lesson. So I think it's awesome that we can have all this collaboration with each other. We can work together on this type of stuff. It's definitely not something I had in my student teaching, so I'm very excited to be able to help you guys out and have you guys help me as we go about this journey together on distance learning. So, bye for now.